Hey everyone, it's Justin here. It's been a long time since I've made a video, and I wanted to start off by talking about some of the vehicles that I've acquired since the last video I made. So I happened to look on my YouTube channel last night. Looks like I've got about 1,000 subscribers out there, so thank you. I guess it happened slightly over time, and I just didn't even realize it. So I kind of given up on YouTube a little bit, got busy, and so there's a few updates. You got 3 new vehicles now, and so I want to walk y'all through one of them that I've got, and that's my 3rd gen Dodge. And so I think that this will be a pretty informal video about what to look for when you purchase one, because generally most Dodge guys on the forum are always like, well, these are great trucks, they're awesome. We all know that it's a Dodge going to have some electrical issues, but what I really want to talk to you all today about is some of the stuff that has gone wrong with the truck. Really that I didn't really anticipate, and hopefully that will shed some light on some of these issues, and just so that everybody knows that the Cummins 3rd gen platform is not necessarily perfect. So some of the things that initially that I would say that were not brought to my attention whenever I bought the truck, and I picked this truck up out of Georgia. Obviously I'm here in Pennsylvania. And for the most part, it's a good looking truck, right? So it's rust free, had it brought up from Georgia. Shout out to Truck Kings out there in Zebulon, Georgia. The truck did not look like this when I bought it. So know that there was a lot of stuff that was put on this truck. For example, the tires. It's got a new back bumper on it. I think it's got some tint on it. You can't see that right now. I put new updated seats in it that didn't have a bunch of cigarette burns in it because I couldn't stand it anymore. Toolbox didn't come with it, but the truck overall showed up like this. And the reason that I bought this truck was typically diesel repairs can be very expensive. And so I wanted to make sure that it had a solid platform and that some of the expensive items had been replaced. So the truck's got about 278,000 miles on it. The reason that I bought it is because it's got a newer used motor in it. It's got a newer transmission in it. And it's also got a brand new turbo on it. And so I think the receipts total up to be probably somewhere around $15,000, if you can believe that. So, yeah, it's had a lot of work done to it. So what I'll do is I'll just walk out around really quick and just point out some of the stuff that you want to be aware of whenever you're buying one of these Dodge pickup trucks. It was not brought to my attention, right? So with that being said, what I'll do is I'll start out at the engine bay and we'll walk through the truck. And we'll go from there. So the number one thing that you want to check for on these trucks, and mine's got about 270,000 miles on it, is the thing that everybody knows about. So you want to check blow by. The truck doesn't have any blow by. It does steam a little bit out of the cap, which is fairly normal. But overall, the truck runs really, really well. So the other thing to check on these trucks is obviously the transmission. Transmission's been redone on this truck, so it checked out good. I'm not gonna pull the dipstick out, get all dirty. But the things that you really wanna look for on these trucks that that I wasn't necessarily privy to is, for example, silly stuff like your battery cables, right? So I had to redo the battery cables on this. If you look at a battery cable kit, you're looking at probably about $300 to replace all the battery cables in it if you buy one that's already ready, set to go. Obviously, I did the military terminals on this. I replaced these by myself, heat shrinked everything and got it done right. The other thing that you want to check, and I would almost replace this as general maintenance, is your crossover cable. So your crossover cable is, it can actually boil over a battery if it's not good, but a lot of times these will go bad. It'll take your battery out, it'll boil it, which it did with this one. And then what you'll need to do is replace this. I would almost dare say that you should just go ahead and replace this crossover cable when you get the truck. It's $45 to $100. Just go ahead and do it as preventative maintenance. That way you don't have to worry about it. So with that being said, the other thing that I would say is your TIPM, or your power control module. So whenever I got this truck, these trucks are really sensitive to any type of electrical issue that goes on. And so you want to make sure that whenever you get your truck, that all of your lights work. If it's got a lamp out or some issue like that, I would literally take the truck apart or pull out the bulb and make sure the bulb is bad, because if the bulb is not bad, it's a good possibility that you have a bad tip-em. And you can get these in the junkyard. It's still expensive. Probably be $300-400. They have a tip-em repair website, and those are typically going to be about $750 to replace this. And so a lot of times, if it's not your tip-em, it's I think it's called your integrated control module, which is down here. That can be bad also. And there's no real good way to test these except for to do it with a test light, and you'd be testing the box, but you can't necessarily test this part down here. And so what I would say is that I actually bought a new one of those, and it actually turned out to be good, because a lot of times what will end up happening is if you have a short or your trailer shorts out, this integrated control module or the tip-em will actually shut down the lights on the truck, and you'll have to disconnect your battery cables for like 30-45 minutes and drain all the power out of it so that it resets everything, because you may be putting bulbs in, they're actually good, and then they won't work because the tip-em is trying to protect the overall electrical system. So I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions about it, feel free to post at the bottom. I'll be glad to help y'all out. The other thing that I would say that really caught me off guard too is, and one more thing is, they don't make these anymore. And what it does is bolt on the side. And so that means that you'll have to get one out of a wrecking yard, or you have to get one off of eBay, and you can't rebuild those. You can rebuild the tip-em, but you can't rebuild, I think it's called the integrated control module. You can't rebuild those. So you will actually have to go and get a used one from a good truck. So that's why it's really, really important on these trucks to make sure that all of the lights work and all the blinkers and everything. So, a couple other things that I want to shed light on are the throttle switch. So one of the things that went bad on this truck is the app sensor went bad on it. And so if you can see in here, the 0304 trucks got a little bit different setup, but what I'll tell you is they don't make this anymore. So once again, you'll have to go get this out of a junkyard truck. I actually bought a brand new one, which was like $200 or $300, and it didn't work, so I sent it back. So there's a company out there, I think, that makes aftermarket ones, and I read a couple of reviews and they didn't work, and I had the same experience, so I went and got one out of a junkyard truck. So I've seen a bunch of people post on the forum where they have issues with this. And so what will happen is you'll either get a lightning bolt, or the truck will throw a P2121, P2122, and the guys will be chasing this. So the main thing that you really want to do is, obviously, whenever you crank the truck up or you put in a new app sensors, you want to press down the throttle up and down 3 different times before you start the truck. So you'll have to disconnect the battery, plug that in, and then you'll have to push up and down the throttle slowly 3 different times before you fire up the truck. It'll calibrate this. But what I've seen a lot online is that a lot of folks will have an issue with this, and they still won't, they'll put a new part in it and it still won't work. And so in typical Dodge fashion, you can see the zip ties here because they no longer make the clip that goes on here. But a lot of times this clip will either be broken or it won't be secured properly. And so what you'll have to do is you'll have to zip tie this back together and zip it really tight. Because what will happen is if it's not completely in there, it will lose signal and it will throw all kinds of codes. It will throw it into limp mode. It'll still tell you that the throttle is bad. And so once I did this, I saw this fix from one of the guys out here on the Third Gear forum, it straightened out everything. Because what happens is the truck gets hot, it gets cold. If this isn't connected correctly, it expands and contracts, and it makes it not make contact with the little prongs on the inside, I guess is what you would call them. And so that's really, really some important stuff that I would take a look at if you run into any electrical issues with this, is take a look at this large connector here. The other thing I would tell you too is just make sure your heating and your air work. I picked up this truck. The heat and the air work, but the air has decided to die on it, which The parts themselves about 350 bucks. It's really not that expensive. Anytime you do one of these trucks, you're gonna be pretty much doing a whole entire system. So you're gonna be doing your condenser, your lines, your evaporator core. You're probably gonna have to pull the dash out of it. And whenever you do it, you're gonna wanna do your heater core also. So just know to look out for that, or try to find a truck that has recently had that completed. So another thing to look out for on these trucks, and I'm really running through a lot of this stuff, is just check for exhaust manifold leaks, right? So this is a fairly expensive fix, which my truck actually just started doing this the other day. We've got a leak around one of the gaskets up here, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upgrade the manifold. But you know, understand that like even the stock manifold is about 140 bucks. You're looking at about 40, 50 bucks for the gaskets. And it's a pretty in-depth job because you got to get down there to the turbo and break all these bolts loose and hope that they don't break off inside the cylinder head. But you know, that's one thing that I would say is check for those leaks. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but a couple other things to check are to check the engine for rear main seal leaks. These like to leak around and this one's not currently leaking. But like you want to check around the rear main seal, because it could be the rear main seal or it could be the cam seal as well. They're known to leak, and what that is, that's a transmission out job. So that could get pretty expensive pretty quick. So I would certainly check on that. And I'm not going to crawl up under the truck. Truck's muddy. It's been raining. And then the other thing that I would check on these trucks is I would check your pinion seal. You know, I've never owned a Dodge product ever that didn't at some point have to have a pinion seal. And I know AAM or whoever, Dana, they make axles for a ton of other people, but every single Chrysler product, truck, platform that I have ever owned has needed a pinion seal. Doesn't matter what it was. You know, the other thing too is that I try to get one of these trucks that's in the best condition that you can, right? I put some new seats in this truck. I kind of Frankensteined them together with my old ones because my old ones had a bunch of cigarette burns in it, and it was looking kind of rough. And so put some new seats in it. I took this top off my old seat because it was better than the junkyard truck and slapped that on there. And kind of the same thing back here. But you know, it's this truck's overall, it's not in too bad a shape. So I got some tape up there. I'm finishing up the headliner job in this truck. I would say that, you know, the thing about these trucks is the interior pieces are pretty expensive for them. So in regards to not necessarily the door panels, but like the seats themselves, you know, if you don't have a local wrecking yard, these seats could cost you upwards of like $500, $600 to $1,000. There were some guys that, you know, if you're out there, I think you're lunatics. They're asking like $650 for a set of leather seats of these trucks that look like they've been through hell and back. And so just know that like if you get a truck and it's got bad upholstery in it, it's going to be expensive. I would say that, you know, check these parts up here. This is like 50 bucks. You know, if that's bad. I would also say that, you know, the main thing is just, you know, try to get one that's in the best condition that's absolutely possible. Because, you know, like in mine, there were cigarette burns. You know, these are kind of some makeshift. I've got them out here. I found these in a wrecking yard. If you can't find the visors in a wrecking yard, it's going to cost you at least $100 to get them off of eBay. And it probably costs you $150, $200 to get them redone. And then also, like mine, the upper dash pad's bad. Now I've got this one downstairs in the basement. So I've got a brand new one for it. It was like 30, 40 bucks, which isn't too awful bad. So I would say that, you know, these are some things, you know, aside from the mechanical standpoint thing to look out for. You know, this over here, check your grab handle. These are notorious for breaking off. They do have a repair kit out. Repair kit's like 10, 15 bucks versus buying a whole brand new piece. I've got a repair kit on that one right now, and it's done pretty well for us. So, you know, this isn't my daily driver truck. I bought this truck, more or less, it's not necessarily like a yard truck, but like one that I could use to haul dirt, rocks with, that I wouldn't really care if, you know, something, you know, I don't want to tear it up, but like I also wouldn't care if, you know, you get in it and you're kind of dirty or whatnot. So trying to think if there's anything else. You know, if you can buy one and you are going to be hauling heavy with it, I would suggest, which you can't see it right now, I'd try to get you one that's already, you can see the plate, you know, one that's got a gooseneck already hooked up to it. This truck's already got a 4-inch exhaust on it. I think it's got a cab delete on it. You know, and then I bought these tires. These are some 35 1250 17 Nitto mud grapplers. You know, I would say the best place to get these is Mavis Discount Tire. I'm sharing some of my secrets here, but at Mavis Discount Tire, what they do is you get a discount, or they'll match the price and then they'll give you a discount on top. So like if you go and you find a cheaper set of tires, for example, on Amazon, they'll match the price and then either drop it 10 or 20%, which then made these more affordable than some of the other options out there. You know, I'll do a review on these at some point. These tires probably got 4,000 miles on them. They've been great. They howl, but like I said, it's not my daily driver, so I'm not too worried about it. The truck itself, I think, is it's a decent platform. You know, if I had to do it all over again, would I get the truck? Maybe. You know, I might want to spend a little bit more money and got a maybe a Duramax or an F250, because like the transmission, I think, is a little bit better in those. There's nothing wrong with this transmission at all, but you know, I think, you know, from a pulling standpoint, the takeoff gear, first gear, is a lot lower in those. You know, I guess you could always do like some of these guys do and do a G56 conversion, but you know, in itself, I would say that I'm pretty happy with the truck. You know, I'm kind of continue to work on it and get it to a certain point to where it's decently reliable. You know, the other thing I would say too that you want to check is you're going to want to check your harmonic balancer. And I'm not going to get up under there and take a look at it, but a lot of times you want to check it for wobbles. So like if you're over here and you're watching the truck run, you see that harmonic balancer. It's way down there at the bottom, but you'll be able to see it. You know, you can kind of see it. And what you want to do is you want to watch that thing and see if it wobbles, because the harmonic balancers in these Cummins trucks, they got a piece of rubber in there, and when the rubber goes bad, it'll get a degree of wobble in it, and it'll be notorious for throwing belts. And so what I would say is this can be a fairly expensive repair also, especially since you know, I think a harmonic balance is probably $200 to $300, or if you get a dampener, it's going to be $500-600. So that would be something else to look out for. But you know, aside from the typical stuff like, you know, check your injectors, stuff like that, I'm trying to think of some odds and ends on things that, you know, were kind of a surprise items that, you know, they don't generally tell you to check out, you know, when you're looking at these trucks. Because a lot of times, you know, you talk to these guys on the forum or even in some of these other videos, they don't really give you the whole picture. Oh, this is a great truck, it's a great platform, and it is. But they also don't tell you the nickel and dime stuff that'll also put you in the grave also as far as your wallet's concerned. Because owning a diesel truck's expensive in general. You know, I'd also say for these trucks that you probably want to plan on a fast system at some point. You know, I put a fuel additive in this truck, you know, and I don't drive it that much. And so, you know, as time goes on, I do more work to the truck. I'll probably put a fast on it at some point if I end up keeping it, which right now I'm planning on keeping it. But, you know, I would just say that, you know, that's some other stuff to look out for. And then, you know, for these 05 trucks, you know, obviously they have the plastic end caps on the intercooler. Those can sometimes crack, and so you can upgrade those to I think it's like an 07 or 08 intercooler, which is metal, which would probably be a little bit better for you. But that's all I got. You know, I'll post a couple more reviews as I'm kind of bringing my YouTube channel per se back to life. You know, overall pretty happy with the truck. You know, a couple things that are left to do to it, but it gets what I need done. And overall, you know, if you have any questions or anything, I'll post some more videos of it. But you know, it's been pretty good. So other than that, I appreciate y'all watching, and I hope y'all like the review. Thank you.